Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. This time we are doing Heroes of Terrinoth. I am D. I am joined, as ever, by my friends.
Friends?
Yeah. I take it back. By these people.
I'm Graham.
I'm Krutzbeck. Sorry, guys, I'm still in Terrinoth mode.
I forget what my name was.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You're Burrowell?
Burrowell.
Something Burrowell.
Tumble.
And you were...
Anyway, so as is tradition for these reviews, we're going to be rolling my explanation of the game from our gameplay video. There will be a time listed on the screen, which you can click to skip ahead if you have already watched that or have no interest in watching that. So let's enjoy that.
What? It's just basketball court under here.
Heroes of Terrinoth is a game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Adam and Brady Sadler and published by Fantasy Flight Games. It is a cooperative RPG wherein players attempt to complete quests using characters representing 4 classical fantasy archetypes. Each game starts with the players choosing one of the game's 8 available quests. These quests come in 3 different difficulties and give the players some information regarding how the game should be set up, including which locations, enemies, items, and nemesis the players will encounter during the game. Each player then chooses one of the hero cards and takes the respective activation cards for those heroes. One of the players is chosen to be the party leader, and this leader flips over the first location card, which will have 2 numbers on it that indicate how many enemies get spawned. The number with a red background indicates how many enemies are spawned engaged with the players, while the number with the blue background indicates how many enemies are spawned in the shadows. The game is played over a series of rounds, comprised of 4 phases each. The first phase is the Hero Phase, where each player will activate one of their activation cards, carry out the actions on said card, and then exhaust it. The second phase is the Enemy Phase, where each player will, one at a time, start activating the enemies on the board and carrying out the actions on said card before they are also exhausted. Following this, there is the Peril Phase, wherein the Peril token gets moved up 1 space on its track, and depending on where it lands, may trigger some sort of effect. The final phase is the Travel Phase, where if the players have fully explored the location they're on, they may move on to the next location. Any remaining enemies left in the shadows are also discarded, and then a new round of enemies are spawned based on the new location card. A game ends once either the victory or defeat condition has been met as detailed on the quest sheet. Once this occurs, the players flip over the quest sheet and read the necessary text, and then the game is over. Okay, so that was immaculate, I think is the word most people would use.
He just gets better and better every time. Well, he thinks he gets better and better every time.
If you are interested in watching said gameplay video, you may of course click on the link in the description below if it's not in the suggested videos. Anyway, Heroes of Terrinoth. So,
Did you say Tears of Terrinoth?
Tears of Terrinoth. Our second venture into Terrinoth thus far on Board Crazy, as far as I can remember. We, of course, touched on Legacy of Dragonhold. This is a completely different kind of game. So this is...
It's a re-implementation of another game.
It is. It's a re-implementation of a
Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game.
Yes.
Which we have not played.
We have not played that.
As far as I know, you guys haven't played it.
I haven't played that.
So we're going to be judging this game on its own merits.
Yes.
Though in a manner of speaking, we'll be judging Warhammer Quest as well.
That being said, something this game lacks that I know that Warhammer Quest has is a campaign.
Okay.
Which I think would really help this game. It's 8 quests you get here with the game of varying difficulties, and they're all one-shots. So basically, every time you start a new one, you start from the beginning again. So there's no persistent character progression. It's you start from scratch every time, and
it's definitely harder to get invested in a game where...
Yeah, like when I was like thinking about it, I was like, okay, cool. We can get characters and kind of do each one and build and get stronger. No, that's not how it works. It's not balanced for that at all, so it's not even really like an option.
Yeah, I remember when we were going through, you were explaining the mechanics of this game, and you talked about how you start off with basic powers, and then you upgrade them. One of my first questions to you was like, oh, cool, so the next time we play like the next quest, we'll still have those upgraded powers, and we keep upgrading them. And you were like, no. And I was like, huh. I feel like the people who play this game would be like people who play D&D or people who like fantasy. They would expect that like persistent growth.
I think we should be clear. Well, this kind of gets labeled as an RPG. If you are into like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or something like that, this is not necessarily going to appeal to you. it's not a role-playing game, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, and this is not anything like that. I didn't get the same kind of.
It's a dungeon crawler, really. It's
a cooperative card game. It's what it should be considered. It's a cooperative card game with RPG elements, not the other way around.
It's all mechanics.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
all combat.
I think one of my biggest issues with this game in itself was the actual cards that we got. You have the different, I forget what they call them, the classes or... Yeah, I forget how they call them. But
that's used.
There was really not that much difference between the cards and the classes. Like, maybe one card had they were slightly different, but there wasn't enough for me to feel like I was playing an entirely different class, which also
unreasonable.
Kind of hurts that role-playing aspect if you want to include that in the game.
I think the advanced, the improved cards are slightly better with that, but even still, I kind of agree. Like, if you play as the mage, there's no, spells you use, it's just you attack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like you both have, so maybe we have the same exact attack, you roll 2 dice, but maybe mine, at the end of it, I get to also collect a success, while at the end of yours, you get to draw a card, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, there are differences between the cards, but they're not
minimal.
Class-specific.
They're minimal. It's so... That was disappointing. I really didn't feel like we were doing too much different until we got our upgraded cards, but...
and that happens, that comes slowly.
It comes slowly, and I felt there wasn't enough to the upgraded cards for me to really, look forward to them, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a huge jump. It's not like they're immediately twice as good or anything like that. It's usually marginal improvement.
Yeah.
It helps in one way.
In defense of the game, in regards to the cards and how there's not as much variance, I think one of the reasons they may have done that is to keep everything easy to learn, in the sense that everyone can learn the game at the same time and learn what the cards do at the same time without having to learn specific spells or anything, and then that keeps this game simpler overall.
I mean, maybe, but
But they've included classes. I would hope that there's still some uniqueness to the classes.
There are RPG elements in the design that would make you expect perhaps more to that end.
Yeah.
But you don't really get it. Another thing that is sort of not very RPG-like is the absence of any sort of gear, which is a bit of a shame. Normally in a game like this, you'd want to get armor or weapons or stuff that maybe give you bonuses, permanent bonuses. In this, there are items you can get from exploring, but they're all one-time use. And some of them aren't even, some of them are bad things for you, so.
Speaking of getting gear, armor, unlocking stuff like that, I agree that would have definitely made sense in this game, but I can't help but to get the feeling just in general about Heroes of Terrinoth that this is the beginning of something bigger. This is almost like the starter set for the card. A lot of card games come with a beginner starter set. I think they should have called that this. Because, for instance, there are things in this game that I noticed that they include in the rulebook or whatnot that aren't really utilized heavily, which leads me to believe that with further expansions and add-ons, they plan on using them more. For instance, on the black enemy dice, you can roll, the skull?
The threats. Yeah.
The threats, that activate the threats. I'm pretty sure the only threats in this game are on the Nemesis cards. Because I'm pretty sure in the rulebook it says you activate all threats, Nemesis cards and otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't think there are threats on any cards other than the Nemesis cards in the entire deck. Which leads me to believe that in the future they plan on adding...
The harder ones will be towards the end, if you will.
I think in the future they plan on adding...
Yeah, you're right.
It's only the Nemesis.
It's only the Nemesis cards, yep.
So I think things like that in the rulebook lead me to believe that they plan on adding to this game.
There may be some
adding more
of these cards that might have one or two, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, but again, that seems like a mechanic where they're they definitely imply in the rulebook that it's going to be on more than just the Nemesis cards, and then in this, it's only on the Nemesis cards. So things like that lead me to believe they will be expanding this. So maybe gear is something they will do down the line.
Well, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. If they did a campaign mode, there's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think at its very core, I think the mechanics are pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think it plays well enough. There's a lot of minutia.
I would say that it's more forgiving than a similar game that we played called One Deck Dungeon that reminds me a lot of. It feels like because you can only always, with the white dice, you always roll successes. There's no chance that even if you get a defense or a shield, it's still good for you. So I feel like like in a game like One Deck Dungeon when you're rolling d6s, you don't get those. You don't get the dice you want. You're really in a bad position. Whereas in this game, I feel like you're always at least making it. It makes the game feel like it's always moving forward because you can never really have a bad roll.
You can have bad rolls.
Yeah, you could roll like 2 shields.
I mean, there's definitely luck in this game. Let's not be misleading. I mean, the dice are good. I think they are well balanced, but again, there is luck as far as things you draw and how you roll and whatnot. I do want to mention separately from this group, I went and by myself I played a 2-player game. Myself controlling both characters, and I really don't think the game is well balanced for 2 players, at least thus far. I played as a mage and a scout, and when you play with 2 players, first of all, you get plus 10 HP to both characters, which is good, I guess, but when you consider that at worst a character will have 10 HP, it's not the greatest bonus in the world. Like 10 is the lowest anyone in there has, so I mean at best you're getting like the 2 weakest HPs added on. And then I played at one of the challenging level missions, and there's like the second tier of missions, and it kind of kicked my ass.
Yeah.
Like when you got 2 you got 2 heroes, and they have to activate all the enemies during the enemy phase. They're constantly getting hit. So I just don't think there's enough. And you only can activate twice per turn, but you're still exhausting your cards. You can't like attack twice per turn. Where with 4 players, you could have 4 attacks on one turn, maybe clear out a bunch of enemies. In this, you can't. It's a lot, for me, it was a lot of like attacking and resting because you just had to sort of keep the swarms away.
Got it.
And I ended up dying early in the 3rd and final location, but it didn't feel great. I imagine there's a lot to keep track of, even for 1 player.
Yeah, right.
2 is a bit of a headache, which I think we can tie into the Minutiae, Will.
We're going back to Minutiae. It's not a word.
Yes, it is. That's the plural.
It's pronounced Minutiae? Let's talk about minutia, or as I like to call them, like caveats in the rules. There's a lot of them. There are a buttload of them.
Well, it's just not even necessarily caveats. It's just so many things.
Yeah. Let me start because I have a
list.
I have a list here.
Go for it.
Okay. So the rule book is laid out in such a way where it constantly is saying you can do this thing, you can do this thing, but and then but I'm saying the but part is like 2 paragraphs down from that. Mm-hmm. But remember, you have to follow this very specific rule. There's a few instances of this where I feel like are like good examples of where the game messes up how to write a rule book and how to just clarify. For instance, the aid ability. It allows you to basically give people success tokens other than yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I think because we're used to playing a lot of RPGs where you can cast spells on yourself, we sort of just assumed that it was okay because it does not say on the aid cards themselves, you cannot cast this on yourself, which could, we're talking like the text is already, I think, too small on the cards. It would have been real easy to include that on the card.
Easily.
Just write somewhere,
there's
a little quote in italics. Yeah. Why not, instead of having that quote down there for color, which no one reads anyway, putting in, hey, by the way, you can't cast this on yourself. Because then, when that, we had to learn that by going into the rule book and specifically finding it. And then even then, it's not laid out clearly. It's just sort of implied. Another rule in there that I didn't like the way it was written was every time you draw a location card, there are numbers at the bottom that indicate how many cards are drawn into the shadows, how many enemy cards are drawn in and automatically engaged with you. And I think it says something along the lines of each player draws a card until you draw up to the amount of the red number in the bottom. So what it's trying to tell you is just draw the cards until you reach that amount. Not each player draw that amount. But it's real easy to misinterpret.
Worded very, Yep, exactly. And we did that. I mean, we totally made that mistake in the beginning.
I will read it specifically. Starting with the party leader and proceeding clockwise, each hero draws the top card of the enemy deck and places it face up in front of them until a number of enemies equal to the engaged spawn value are in front of the heroes.
Yes.
So you could easily, I at first read that as to interpret each of the heroes has that number in front of them.
It's very, They did a good thing by trying to show a picture of that, but they could have made it so the picture could be so much more clear.
It's only one person.
It's only one person, so it's easily to make
Yep.
it's.
And then
Oh, there's more?
Oh, there's more. Here's my last example, and I think this is the only one that we actually still got wrong in our video.
Oh, yeah.
So, which you probably noticed, well, maybe not. There's a pinned comment in the video where we explain this, but when you roll the white dice and you get a shield, the defense icon, what that actually means is, as it says in the rulebook, it reduces the impact of an attack. Now, I think when we originally read that, we just thought that meant you roll it and it negates a counterattack.
Oh, no.
It negates damage. And the note for it negating damage is 3 paragraphs down from the description of the shield icon. Why not just put in the description of the shield icon, it negates, reduces the impact of the enemy counterattacks, and it only applies to damage. Or it takes away a wound. It doesn't take away, why not just put that together instead of... Because it
doesn't take away an enemy's success.
Yeah.
It takes away
the enemy still hits you. You just take
which totally change. I mean, it changes a lot because the game seemed too easy.
Yes,
it's because you're constantly rolling successes and shields.
Like here, it's here. It's on page 6 in the rulebook. They go over this. About how for each defense in the actions results, this is defenses. For down here under counterattacks, it says for each defense in the actions results, they can reduce the amount of wounds they suffer by 1. Wounds are described in later detail on page 9.
Yeah.
So even when you're reading this the first time, you don't know exactly what that means until you get to here, and you may forget that by the time you're here because there's a lot to take in with this game.
Exactly, and you and I know for a fact you and I both read the rulebook in full.
Yeah.
And Graham, you played the game with us multiple times.
Yeah.
It's not like there was only one person. We had redundancies when it came to reading this rulebook, and we still, even with all our paranoia, made that mistake. And that just shows you that the rulebook definitely could have been written better. And even then, I even said to Graham, I think during the video, I don't think I have the footage of it anymore, but I think at one point I said to him, why not just make an FAQ at the back? Because a lot of games do this where there's a specific page in the back that explains all the little caveats of a bunch of different things instead of spreading them out through the rulebook.
I mean, they do have some rules clarifications.
But exactly, the rulebook in general feels disorganized, and so when you want to go look at a rule, you're not even almost sure where to start looking. Yeah, there's been other games we've played like that, and it just it's frustrating. A rulebook is something that should be
has to be clear.
Clear, really. I mean, and I don't think it's something that's that tough to get correct.
Yep. Yeah, the rules are not the best, but I think once you learn them, the game's very playable. I don't hate the game.
No.
I just really don't appreciate how the rules are laid out.
I don't think the rules allow for a particularly fluid gameplay, if that makes sense. There's still a lot to keep track of, even if you keep track, if you're on top of everything. Like making sure all of your counterattacks come from the strongest enemy you're engaged with and all that stuff. And there's always little effects you may have that you have to constantly go back to and I have to take a wound or...
Yeah, yep.
Even little things that would normally be a thing in other games aren't a thing in this. Like when you kill a bad guy, you can't take it off right away. It still has a chance to counterattack you, which seems counterintuitive to the I just slam my cleave attack into its forehead and it's dead. But no, it's still getting one swing at you, and so you have to keep it in your hand until after the enemy counterattack phase. It's okay. I mean, I get why they put it in there, but that's awkward. Any final thoughts, fellas?
One thing it's a small thing, but I did like about the game was the party leader system and how the party leader can kind of keep the token if they want to. And there's some benefits to it, but also some drawbacks. Because you definitely take on most of the attention and damage if you are party leader.
Absolutely.
But then you also have some, I would say, extra abilities and extra things you can do with that. And so I did like I did like the party leader system in this game. It wasn't just a standard, it either stays with one person and that's it, or it rotates around. It was
you can choose in the travel phase to shift the party leader to someone else. And I think they did that on purpose because you're right. When you're the party leader, you sort of take the brunt. You're the first person engaged. A lot of the ones are you're the one who gets poisoned or wounded or whatever. So I do like that they actually, you don't have to keep the party leader with, and then they don't have to have a dictatorial. They don't have to be a tyrant. They can give it to someone else.
Yeah.
So
there's other stuff. There's a good variety of enemy cards.
Yep,
there are.
Which I enjoy, and there's a neat variety of things that can happen there. I kind of wish they had done more with the locations, as far as like flavor.
I like that. I wish they had done more with the locations, and like I'm assuming you're saying adding more to the locations, special like. I know there are some things with the locations you can do, but more uniqueness to being at that location.
I wouldn't have. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of fine. It would have been cool if they had if the locations had continued the story, giving you some idea why am I going from here to here exactly? What does this mean? And what is it benefiting me to go from the inn to the forest or wherever?
I think the whole game would benefit from just a bit more narrative. And yeah, that maybe is a future campaign mode could help solve that. Maybe they didn't put a campaign mode in this because again, this is supposed to be. I think this is really kind of supposed to be like a starter, like a trial kit.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be. I think this is going to be. I think the one shots are difficult. You're more likely to die, and maybe that's why they didn't want to do a campaign. They didn't want people to get invested and have their. But I do think that they're going to adapt the rules to a campaign later on and add more But or at least I don't know. This is all speculation. I can't judge the game for what it might do in the future.
Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, that's true. At the end of the day, I think this type of game is really tough to get right.
Yeah.
I personally, generally come away from these feeling kind of let down because in theory I like them. I like the idea of having these characters and fighting off these bad guys and exploring and getting stronger and gaining loot and all that. But I don't know, just between balancing and getting the mechanics, it's
an explanation, and
Anyway,
scores.
Are we doing scores?
Are we not going to do scores?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We haven't really
fully
tackled the game. I don't know if that'd be appropriate.
All right, yeah, that's actually smart. How about a sentence or two to wrap up what you thought of the game so far?
Okay, wasn't prepared for this. Gosh, put me on the spot. Do you have one, Will?
Yeah, I would say that this is a game that I think has a lot of potential for growth. I think had a lot of potential to be really satisfying as it is on its own, but is spoiled by too many caveats in the rules. Too much. I think they tried to add just too much nuance to it, and then in certain areas, I think, for instance, the rules, but then not enough nuance when it came to narrative or making the characters feel unique.
As it is so far, I feel like it's got some flaws that it's going to be tough for me to overcome and want to come back to this too often. Again, it's on paper this is something I should enjoy, but I don't know. It's not there for me yet.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think it's one of those things where in general this style of game is not really what I enjoy when it comes to tabletop gaming in general. So it's really tough for me to give this an honest review because I'm going to come in with my expectations already of it. But there just wasn't enough there in this in what I do enjoy about these games, like the character cards as we discussed. I wish there was more uniqueness between the classes. And you're right, the narrative is just it's what's going to get me into the game for this style of game, and there wasn't really enough there to keep me interested.
So see, we're not always positive on this.
I mean, I don't hate this game. I would very much.
Sometimes we're critical.
I would very much be willing to come back and play.
I would
the
too.
whole thing.
Sure,
I've already done so.
I'm not going to say no.
Anyway, thank you for watching this review of Heroes of Terrinoth, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Check out our social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all linked to in the description below. You can also get our updates from those. So I think that's going to do it for this week. And come back this Friday and check out us returning to another familiar location. Until then, though, I'm D.
I'm Graham.
And I think I have carpal tunnel. I don't know. It's just too much.
This on a high note.
Too much rolling dice.
Oh God, that was.
So I think it's.
Bye.
See ya.